Most people eat when they're stressed. And I want to tell you, this is also why strict diets fail. Restricting your food choices works for a little while, but ultimately leads to falling off the wagon. The reason is always stress. When you want to eat something, but you tell yourself you can't, it involves mental effort. So that's not a big deal when life is going well. But as soon as you get busy, have a crisis, maybe get out of your routine, go on vacation, you inevitably break down. And if you're a high achiever, growing your business or career, taking care of your family, and trying to have some fun along the way, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I do have great news. This doesn't mean that trying to shed the excess pounds is futile. You just need to understand why you turn to food for comfort and what to do to break the cycle.
Welcome to the Legendary Life Podcast, where it's all about taking control of your health, losing fat, transforming your body, and living the life you deserve with celebrity fitness trainer and longevity enthusiast, Ted Rice. Do you reach for high-calorie foods when you're feeling sorry for yourself? Do you constantly think about food when you're anxious or sad? Do you sometimes put food in your mouth without realizing it? Do you need a beer, cocktail, or glass of wine after a long day? Do you go out to dinner and celebrate with a big meal and alcohol when you close a big deal or accomplish a project? And do you also go out and console yourself with a big meal and alcohol if you had a tough time or if a project fell through or a deal fell through? If you answered yes to one or more of those questions, then it's likely you're eating due to your emotional state rather than physical hunger. And today I'm going to talk about the 7 steps that I use or used for myself, but also use for my clients who struggle with stress eating or emotional eating. And if you answered yes to any of those questions, you're going to want to hear this episode because I'm going to tell you exactly why it happens and what to do about it. So what is up, my friend? Welcome to the Legendary Life Podcast. I'm your host, Ted Rice, health expert and coach to entrepreneurs, executives, and other high-achieving professionals. We produce this show for 2 reasons. Number 1, I've been in this business for 24 years. I made a lot of mistakes, listened to people who were wrong, and I wasted a lot of time. And I want to save you time. The majority of what we hear online about health and fitness, it's often wrong or incomplete. And I want to save you time to get you the best results possible. And the second reason is if you are a high achiever, if you are that entrepreneur or executive running a business, and you know, just like in your business, you hire the best people to help you grow your business, and you're also looking to save yourself time and hire the best person to help you achieve as much success with your health as you have in your career or business, you'll know who to hire. So let's jump into this conversation. It took me a while to figure out that I struggled with emotional eating. You want to know why? Because I was lean, I worked out, everybody thought I was the picture of health. In reality, it was just the superficial aspect because a lot of what was driving me to work out so excessively, at least in my 20s and 30s, was I was under so much stress. And then when I got fat in my 30s, my mid 30s, I started to realize something was wrong. But what really solidified this lesson for me was when my father died in October of 2020. Earlier that year, during the lockdown and all the craziness, I don't want to rehash it, but I was locked in a room in Medellin, Colombia. And while other people were saying, oh, I'm going to get out of shape because I don't have a gym, I actually worked out like crazy with the little bit of equipment, the bands and the body weight workouts that I use, and got into incredible shape. I was the leanest and probably the biggest I'd ever been in my 46 years of being alive. I was shredded. People told me I looked like the white Bruce Lee. Few people told me that. I thought it was a fun compliment. And since Bruce Lee was one of my childhood idols, I really it made me smile. And the best part was I felt like I had cracked the code on being super lean while I was still enjoying my favorite foods. But when I got a call that my father was in the emergency room with poor health,
I booked a last minute flight to Florida to go see him. And that's when the cycle of stress eating happened. I went from being locked away in a room and developing these routines and getting into great shape. And then I found myself in my dad's home in Vero Beach, Florida. I could see that it was a situation where the end was near for him. I didn't know if it was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen, but the stress was high. And I started eating uncontrollably. I was under so much stress that I worked out a little bit, but I had to scale back my workouts. I just didn't have the energy. I just felt fried and fatigued. And pizza, key lime pie, and ice cream were just, a few of the ways that I used to medicate my stress levels to try to get myself to feel better. And then my leanest body ever began to put on fat. What was strange about this particular situation for me was that I knew exactly what to do to get and stay lean. And I was even tracking my calories at the time. And I saw what I was doing, and I had enough control over my habits so that I could track even when I was overeating, but I couldn't control myself. Or at least I didn't feel like I could. I kept eating. I just couldn't stop. Now, eventually I got myself back under control, and I didn't sway too far away from that level of leanness. More importantly, this experience formed the foundation of my approach that I use with my clients who struggle with stress eating. And I still struggle with it too, in a way, but I know how to control myself now. And I do also remember I used to wonder why my highly intelligent, high achieving clients would be able to control what goes in their mouth. They can build businesses, do $1 million deals, win court cases. I didn't understand what was going on. And this was even after I taught them the most flexible dieting approach to getting lean ever. And then I realized the problem isn't not knowing what to do. They know what to do, but they can't do it. Well, why couldn't they do it? It was stress. And if you've ever felt like you used, or maybe you're in the process of it, in the midst of it, using food to manage your emotions and it's sabotaging your fat loss efforts, you're not alone. Statistics vary, but the estimates I've read range from 50 to 75% of people eat when they're stressed. Now, there's some people, and you might be this one person out of more than 1,000, but some people eat less when they're stressed. If that's you, good for you. We all hate you. We don't hate you, but what kind of? But this isn't for you. Most people eat when they're stressed. And I want to tell you, this is also why strict diets fail. Restricting your food choices works for a little while, but ultimately leads to falling off the wagon. The reason is always stress. When you want to eat something, but you tell yourself you can't, it involves mental effort. So that's not a big deal when life is going well. But as soon as you get busy, have a crisis, maybe get out of your routine, go on vacation, you inevitably break down. And if you're a high achiever, growing your business or career, taking care of your family, and trying to have some fun along the way, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I do have great news. This doesn't mean that trying to shed the excess pounds is futile. You just need to understand why you turn to food for comfort and what to do to break the cycle. So let's get into it. Well, first of all, you need to know the difference between physical hunger and stress hunger or emotional hunger. So there's key differences here. Physical hunger comes on gradually. You just desire food. Just, oh, wow, I'm hungry. I need to eat something. After you eat, you feel satisfied. You feel better after eating. And it's intentional. You're going out to eat lunch because you need to eat. Haven't eaten today. Now let's contrast that with stress hunger. It comes on quickly, and it's usually for specific foods. If you're just hungry, you're like, give me a chicken salad, give me, whatever. I just need to eat. But stress hunger, it's specific. I want tacos. I want pizza. Ooh, I need to have a piece of that chocolate cake. Or like me back in Vero Beach, Florida with my dad, key lime pie. It's something that I grew up with, by the way. In Florida, you should know, just kind of kidding, but we're famous for key lime pie. And it's something I ate as a kid. My stepmother used to make a killer key lime pie. And so stress hunger, it comes on quickly, it's specific, and you still feel unsatisfied after eating. There's also feelings of guilt after eating, and it's usually impulsive. Now, why does this happen? Now, I want to get into the strategies, but let's take a moment to understand the science of what's going on here. And the reason I do this is because that I found teaching my clients this information helps them to view stress eating not as a personal failure, but as a way that they're wired, a way that they need to manage themselves. So the first step to solving this problem is to understand it. When we're talking about stress, we're also talking about measurable physiological changes in your body. For example, cortisol, your stress hormone. Elevated cortisol nudges you towards seeking pleasure. In this case, delicious calorie-laden food. So this isn't about lacking willpower, it's human biology. Another key player is dopamine. Certain emotions like loneliness, anxiety, boredom, sadness, anger can also prompt us to reach for comfort foods. Why? Because eating them releases dopamine. It's like a mini fireworks show in your brain when you eat that slice of pizza or that pint of Haagen-Dazs ice cream. These foods also train your brain to anticipate them while releasing less dopamine over time. So that's why if you've ever eaten and indulged, when I asked you, when I said you typically feel unsatisfied when you're eating, this also happens with drug use. First time you try a drug, maybe you haven't tried a drug. I've had a crazy past. First time I smoked marijuana, it was amazing. And it just never, ever was again as pleasurable as the first few times I've done it. And in part, that has to do with dopamine. There is also serotonin. Now, serotonin is your neurotransmitter that contributes to feelings of well-being and happiness. And your body makes serotonin by using the amino acid tryptophan. And that's something you get from your diet. Many comfort foods, particularly those in higher carbohydrates, not that carbs are bad, but it can cause an insulin spike, which in turn leads to a temporary increase in tryptophan in your brain. And this is probably why, in part, a lot of people like low-carb diets, although they typically don't work out well long-term. It can be a nice reset short-term. Now, there's also other things. We've talked about leptin and ghrelin. Ghrelin is your hunger hormone. Leptin is your satiety hormone. And when you're stressed or sleep deprived, leptin gets a bit amplified, ghrelin, the hunger hormone, gets a bit amplified, and leptin gets a little bit quieter. The result is overeating. There's also a gut-brain connection. We know that gut bacteria can impact anxiety levels, and healthier gut bacteria prefer healthier foods. And if you're not eating enough of those, that can influence the way you feel as well. Now, look, I know it may sound a little complicated, but remember, it's not about memorizing this stuff. It's just understanding there's biology here. There's certain things as human beings that we just need to do. Go to sleep, use the bathroom, eat. At the most fundamental level, it's just how we're created. So understanding that, hopefully you start to not take indulging in emotional eating or stressing it as a personal failure. Okay, that's really why I shared all that. Now let's get into how to take charge of stress eating. Step number one is to identify physical hunger versus emotional hunger. And the way to do this, or what I like to do, and what helped me, was use MyFitnessPal. Just track for 2 weeks. You don't have to track even for months or years or anything like that, but track for 2 weeks. And if you find yourself not even being able to track because you're so busy or stressed, okay, cool. But what did you eat then? Write it down or just log it, but don't try to be accurate with the calories, because this will help you to spot patterns. Is it real hunger, or are you reaching for more snacks when you're stressed, bored, or upset, or overeating? So you have to identify physical hunger versus emotional hunger. If you just ate a meal, but you just have a craving for something else, it's emotional hunger or stress hunger. Number two is identify your stress eating triggers. This is a crucial step. For example, work stress or poor sleep are my triggers at the moment. But I've seen other clients who, when they go too long without eating, that's what triggers overeating for them. So when we're saying emotional eating or stress eating, we're not saying something bad is going on in your life. We're saying something's causing you to be stressed. It could just be that you're trying to do that intermittent fasting technique. Your family life is good and work is busy, and you're trying to skip a meal and you just feel on edge because you drink coffee and tried to skip a meal. And that's one of the reasons why I try to get people to try eating and off of intermittent fasting, and they usually appreciate it. So identify your stress eating triggers. What's causing you to overeat? Now, if you are tracking with MyFitnessPal, you can easily tell, why did you eat so much that day? Why did you eat so much that meal? What was going on? And step number 3 is develop healthier coping strategies. Now, you don't have to use the same strategies I use, but I'll go for a walk, I'll meditate, I'll get a massage. Now, I'm a bit what some people might think extreme. I'll get 2 or 3 massages in a week. I'll meditate multiple times a day. You don't have to do what I do. I've had clients use saunas, sauna blankets, take up musical instruments. But the point is, you'll have to find something to do. Because one thing is certain, you can't just use willpower to fight your food cravings. You can't just say, oh, when it comes on, I'm just going to fight it and not give into it. You can do that, but you'll eventually lose. And if you're overweight right now or obese right now, you're losing. And stress is assuredly a part of it. It's not always a part of it, but it's extremely common, especially in today's world, that stress is part of the problem. In fact, one of the things that I do with my clients is coach them on stress management. It's one of the things that I don't talk about enough, but I've helped so many clients break emotional eating or stress eating patterns by coaching them on stress. So ask yourself, what can you do to cope with your stress differently? Because eating does work. It does make you feel better, especially if you overeat and your stomach hurts. That pain in your stomach gets your mind, at least for me, gets my mind off of whatever else I was thinking about. It's like, oh man, what was I worried about? I don't know. My stomach hurts right now. Can you relate to that? Hopefully not, but I think it's quite common. Step 4, commit to regular exercise and adequate rest. The benefit of, well, let me say it like this. Exercise sucks for fat loss. Sucks. You can burn 300-400 calories in 45 minutes of exercise, or you can just not eat that extra slice of pizza. But where exercise is crucial is in managing your stress. And whenever I'm working with a client who's struggling to get on top of their diet and eat in a calorie deficit, and I can tell a big part of the challenge is stress related, I focus on helping them to feel better. And we change around their workouts. We get them to focus on sleep and stress management, and it works. Once they're feeling better, I got a client right now. She did not do so well for 4 months in my program. Her weight was up and down and up and down. And we even got on a call. Was in my group, and she thought I was going to ask her to leave the program. I was like, no way, I'm here to help. And once we had that conversation and once we started working together and diving a bit deeper to root out the cause of what was in her way, scale started to drop. She hit an all-time low. I'm super proud of her. And it's often challenging for my clients when we take this approach, although not in her case. She was right on board with the strategy. But if you're under stress, you have to understand you're going to have to manage your stress a bit better before you try to cut calories. Now, why am I saying that? Because cutting calories puts stress on you. It's restrictive. It requires you to do something, even if you're, some people say, oh my God, I can't track my calories. Yeah, you're too stressed. Your life is too chaotic to do it. But guess what? You'll still have to do something. And most people can't stick with it. It's the number one thing why people can't stick with diets. Just starts to create too much stress. So commit to regular exercise, good night's sleep, and of course, developing those better coping habits for your stress.
and you're going to start to feel better. Weight loss is going to be much easier. Step number 5, probably the most underrated step, because you will slip up. Part of beating emotional eating is not beating yourself up when you do it. Saying, okay, this is going to happen. I need to be prepared. I need to be prepared when it happens. What am I going to do? How am I going to stop and do a bit of damage control? And how am I going to nurture myself or motivate myself to get back on track? Because what's interesting about beating yourself up is it also causes stress. And if you're already stressed and you're eating because you're stressed and you say bad things to yourself because of giving in to the cravings because you were stressed, it creates more stress. And I think you see the problem. You're not addressing the root cause. And I see this self-flagellation or self-punishment might have gotten you to where you're at in life right now. But if you're successful with your business or career, but your health is not so successful, and if you are overweight or obese, you are not successful with your health. Don't care what your doctor says or what your biomarkers say right now. You're a ticking time bomb. It is what it is. It's not shaming, doesn't make you a bad person, but it's the state of the situation. It's like $1,000. It's like someone being $1,000 expense away from bankruptcy. It's like, no, everything's cool. Everything's going well. It's like, yeah, until something happens and then you're screwed. And that's what being out of it, having excess body fat. It's like being in debt. So if you're in that situation, then you got to be careful about how you talk to yourself, because you may have gotten to this point, success, financial success, but if you don't have the health success, what you're doing isn't working. Okay. What you're doing isn't working. And self-compassion, I think it'll probably resonate more with women, making stereotype generalizations here. But I often see, maybe that's not true. I'll take that back. It's really with high achievers. Now, I just thought of a woman who I've worked with who is extremely hard on herself in this particular area. And I also think that men are a little bit less open, is what I was really trying to say. I think men are a little bit less open to practicing self-compassion, because I think, it's not manly to be self-compassionate, but it is manly to get results. Okay. It is manly to own what isn't working and to step up and be an adult, which I the talk about manliness and masculinity. I think it's just being an adult. Being an adult means recognizing what isn't working for you and changing an approach. And self-compassion, not beating yourself up and adding more stress to an already stressed out body is the way to go. So brute force only gets you so far, but now it's time to transition to becoming a master of your emotions. Step number 6 is be in charge if you want to indulge. If you're craving a certain food, it's okay to give in. I do it a lot. I track it and I hit my calories though. I had a chocolate croissant yesterday, or pain au chocolat. That's what it was. And what I want you to do is when you do indulge, enjoy it. Don't scarf it down, savor every bite, and remember, you're the boss here. One other thing I'll say about this, if you're going to eat something good. Do not be like how I used to be, where I would put a stale cookie in my mouth, tasted like it's a cookie and your brain knows it's a cookie. But have you ever had a stale cookie or just a cookie that wasn't that tasty, or dessert that wasn't that tasty, and you ate it anyway? I've stopped doing that. I'm like, I'm not going to eat this. It isn't good. And I'll go find something good to eat. And you know what now? After I ate some desserts, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was delicious. It was a great experience. My relationship with food is so much better now. And again, I still track it and I still stay lean. In fact, I'm getting back down to that leanness level that I was in 2020. And this is one of my strategies to do it. Be in charge if you want to indulge. Now, I want to say this. There's some folks who may need to go cold turkey for a while. If you find you have zero self-control and that one thing, that one indulgence leads to another, then you're going to have to work on managing your stress and improving yourself emotionally. before you get to this part where you're going to be in charge. So again, you could even consider, if you're bad off enough and you feel totally out of control, seek out a psychologist. Just do it. Just find someone to help you. Step number 7, create a fulfilling life outside of food. One thing that I think escapes not all the clients that I work with, but certainly some of them, is they're not happy about their life. Their life isn't so great. And when I say it's not so great, I'm not the one who's judging it. I'm not looking at their life and saying, hey, your life sucks. It's boring. You're not doing anything fun. They feel that way. They just haven't been honest with themselves. And I'll ask them, are you having fun? Or do you have hobbies? Do you do things outside of work and family? Do you have friends you hang out with? So build a life that's so engaging and so exciting that food isn't the only source of pleasure. I remember I had a client come meet me in Mexico for a private retreat in October of 2022. We went scuba diving. We did cold plunges. I trained him. He lost 3 pounds in the weekend. And he thought it was going to be, in his words, a fat camp, right? And if you don't know what that is, what they do is they put you on a strict diet for a weekend or a week or whatever it is, and they make you do a lot of exercise. I did not do that with them. I'm against that because it's just nonsense. It's like, hey, you're going to do a bunch of exercise now. You're going to eat super strict. And then when you go back home, you're not going to do what you're doing here, but yeah, whatever. So anyway, he lost 3 pounds in the weekend, but we ate fried soft shell crab tacos and bean dip. Now, I showed him some other things to do. We weren't only eating that stuff, but the most memorable moment, and when I know he had a big breakthrough with me, is when he told me, Ted, I'm not even thinking about food. We can't all have these peak experience weekends, but we can have more fun in our life so that food, it's not about food. I want to say one more thing about this because I think it's important. I've traveled all over the world. I shouldn't say all over. I haven't been to Africa yet. Haven't been to the Middle East yet. Haven't been to Antarctica, but I've traveled a lot and I've lived in other cultures, in other countries. Only in America and people who copy us do we have fitness people saying, food is just fuel, bro. No, it's not. In Asia, it's a way to connect. It's a way to get out of the house. It's a whole experience and it's amazing. And they don't have the same issues that we do with obesity. I'm in Brazil right now. Food is a big deal here. Going out with your friends and eating is a big deal. Now, the obesity rates are rising here, not quite US levels. What I'm trying to get at here is we're not trying to remove food as a source of pleasure. It is a source of pleasure all over the world, but we're trying to take it out of first place. And if food is your main source of pleasure in your life, you're going to have to expand because there's no way that you're going to take your main source of pleasure away. You're going to continue to indulge. It just doesn't make sense not to. And I think that's another reason why strict diets fail. We need to have a more compelling life or exciting life, compelling vision for our life, living a more exciting life. That's why I do all the things that I do. It makes my life exciting. You don't need to be extreme like me and travel all the time, but what can you do? And this is something I work with my clients on. They find ways to have fun, ways to spend more time with their partner, date nights, so many things. But you've got to create a fulfilling life outside of food. So just to recap here, the 7 steps were: number 1, identify physical hunger versus emotional hunger. Step 2, identify your triggers. Step 3, develop healthier coping strategies. Step 4, commit to regular exercise and adequate rest. Step 5, practice self-compassion. Step 6, be in charge if you want to indulge. Step 7, create a fulfilling life outside of food. One thing I want to tell you, or the thought I want to leave you with, is emotional eating is a habit, and all habits can be broken. It just takes time for your brain to rewire itself. And that same client, the woman who I talked about earlier, she was telling me about her cravings for Jimmy John's sandwiches. When work got stressful, she would say, it's going to be a Jimmy John's sandwich day, Jimmy John's day. And she felt it would never go away. But with working together, we were able to make it go away. It just took time, consistent effort, and figuring out what was missing for her. And one thing I want to tell you is no internet guru will tell you this. They'll keep selling you the miracle diets, the extreme workouts, the supplements. What I'm telling you, it's a bit deeper. It's not as sexy. Like, oh, you mean I'm actually going to have to deal with the real problems in my life to stop this emotional eating habit, the stress eating habit? I'd rather take a supplement too, but it doesn't work. The truth is, if you want to master the weight loss game, you need to use the process described here. Got to develop that awareness. You've got to come up with other ways to manage your stress other than eating. And you have to create a lifestyle that excites you. And it's my mission to help you get past the diet and exercise conversation to understand what's really stopping you from the body and health that you want, and to show you that it's possible by doing less, not more. So what can you do after listening to this episode today? What can you take action on? And I want to give you a bonus 8th step, which is never give up. Don't stop until you figure this out. Bonus step number 9 would be to hire a professional to help you, whatever type of professional you feel like you need. And to finally wrap things up, I want to say, if this hit home with you, share this with another high achiever who might be struggling with stress eating and maybe not even know it, who maybe still thinks that strict diets and extreme workouts are the way to get in shape and get to better health, instead of dealing with the issues that we talked about here. So who could you share this episode with? Hope you enjoyed today. Hope you take action on what you learned, and I'll speak to you soon. And on Monday, I've got another interview for you. Dr. Chris Friesen is back on the show, and we're going to dive into a conversation about motivation, about why people who think they have ADHD are actually suffering from something completely different. And we talk about how to correctly get that diagnosed, because you may get a false positive with ADHD if you're not testing for the right, or if you're not testing the right way. We also talk about what's in the way of you achieving better success, not just with your health, but with your life in general, and how it's all connected. Chris is one of my favorite people to talk to, because I'll be honest with you, I don't learn that much these days from talking to other fitness professionals. It's very rare. But when I have someone like Dr. Chris Friesen on the show, I feel like, whoa, I just understood brain science better. I understood behavior better. And that's why I love having him on the show. And as some of you already know, he's a licensed clinical forensic and neuropsychologist who's always been fascinated by what makes people successful. But right now, he primarily helps professional, national, Olympic, and upcoming elite athletes, as well as other high achievers, to perform at their best. So if you want to know how to create more success in your life and achieve better performance for whatever you're trying to achieve, especially with your health, you're going to love this conversation on Monday with Chris. Hope you have a great weekend, and speak to you then.
Are you a busy professional who's crushing it in your career or in growing your business, but you're struggling to lose weight and transform your body while fitting in your social life as well as your work obligations? If the answer is yes, well, let me help you get into the best shape of your life while thriving in your business. Go to legendarylifepodcast.com/apply and schedule a 15-minute strategy call with me today.